Why is no one doing this with this kayak? This is arguably the #1 selling kayak that you see on Marketplace. You see so many people selling, buying, owning this kayak, but nobody seems to ever put a stern mounted motor like a Newport or a Taquito on the back. So that's what we're doing today. All right, we just drove 3 hours here. Now what? Now what are we going to get? I got my box of parts. Time to see what's inside. Max load here. It is a little bit wet. So big things are happening. We just got back from Eco Fishing Shop with something new. So let me show you what we got. Back there is our old Shoaly, stripped down, still has some water in the hole. Right here is our new kayak. This is a Old Town Sportsman 120. And this might surprise people because if you remember, up until early last year, I actually owned a topwater 106. But we just got done rigging this thing, and I'm gonna walk you guys through my thought process on how you rig a new kayak and some of the things you need to look for. And I'm gonna preface this, a lot of people are gonna see this and think like, oh, that's not a kayak, you know, it's nowhere near the Shoaly in terms of river performance, which is probably true to a little extent, but you should see the way we have this rigged. This sucker is ready to go wherever you want it to go. And one of the big misconceptions, ignore the dirty pegs. It was muddy out there, it's been raining. That this is the same as the pedal versions, but it's really not. It's got a much more open cockpit, slightly less wide through here. I think the top water and the PDLs are like 34.5. These are 33.6, I think. From here to here, we could probably measure it with a catchboard if we wanted to. But I wanted to try something new. I've got plenty of other kayaks, and I think this is a super underrated kayak because with the price reductions that Old Town has done on the 106 and 120 Sportsman paddle version, you can get both of these for around, I think this one is $1,100 and the 106 is $99.99. So far as a value, this is one of the best value paddle kayaks on the market because you basically get all the features of the Sportsman lineup without the heavy price tag. It just doesn't have a pedal drive. So it's honestly pretty legit. Now we did have to make some massive changes to this, which we'll talk about throughout this video. I want to walk you guys through the foot steering. So this does not come on here stock. This is actually still curing. We've put some silicone on the inside. And let me show you how we went about doing that. All right, so we just put in a hatch. This is step 1 of all this. This is important because the hatch is the way you can access this, which we got to put a mount on. And I've actually spent a lot of time studying this. This is the first time I've got a chance to actually see it in person. I knew we were gonna have to do a hatch. I did the smallest possible hatch because I don't really want this area taken up by a giant hatch because I'm not using it for storage. And then like right here, we'll probably put some sort of Yak Attack pass-through thing for the Newport motor. Just because I think you could get a full-size black pack in here, can't you?
Yeah, you should be able to. If not, the 13x16 should fit good.
Yeah, well I don't even ever use the big ones, so. Anyways, hatch installed. Easy peasy. And then we went ahead and put in these. These are the one objective like steering eyes. I think they technically are called frog eyes. I almost used these on my last build, but I opted not to, so we had these left over. And then we were running it through here. So the Newport will go here. It's actually mounted directly to the kayak itself. It's still got some silicone curing on it, but it's a really strong bond right there. I mean, as long as you line it up right, like you can mount that bad boy on there. It's a little tricky because there's, you know, you got to line it up to make sure it's on there right. And we're off by about 1 centimeter, I think is what I measured at, but it's really just splitting hairs at that point. But with the steering goes up and then it pops out through these little, I guess we'll call them nipples because that's what they are, which are just drilled in there. And then we've got the foot steering on rails. We'll get that cleaned up for the final video, but super simple. I actually did not even run tubing for this. So it's the first time I've never run tubing, so it's in there loose. We're gonna see how I like it. I figured if I didn't like it, I could always come back in later and put the tubing in because the tubing will actually fit in these if need be. You just have to bore them out a little bit. But I figured since this was like really streamlined, it would be no issue. Another major change that we had to make, and it's ugly, so brace yourself because I haven't sanded it yet, is we actually had to trim the interior of this rim, and I'm gonna sand this and get it even. I still have to like fix this. See how it's rough? I'm gonna like even this out right there so it's even with the rest of it. And I'm gonna sand it so it looks just like that. But we're still pretty early in this build, but I had to be able to get the bigger batteries in there, and it was just like a couple centimeters too big to get it in there and turn it. We've already run our wiring from front to back, so we can power the motor however we see fit. Like I said in my Shoalie video, I like to have it here. If you look at where I had it on the Shoalie, pretty much the same exact spot. And that's because you can reach or turn around and reach it. I put it here because your box will sit beyond this, but this still gives you access to this area if you want to put like a battery or cooler in there. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to try a kayak like this, because it's the same length, but you get a lot more balance. So all the weight from the motor in the back is back here, black pack, me in the middle, battery in the front, tons of storage too. A lot of the problems I had with the Shoalie, not that it was a problem, was that a lot of the weight was shifted to the back. So if you see where the seat's at on the Shoalie, you have all this room up front, which I liked it. And you know, I love this boat. It's a really good boat, but excited to try this out on the river because it paddles really well. Like in the past, I've taken these boats down the river, and this one actually tracks pretty well. All right, so we are out on this foggy, cold day testing our new kayak. And first thoughts here, having showed you guys in the garage, I was a little worried about how the steering was going to be because we did not use tubing. This is the first time I've ever done a kayak build without tubing. And what that means is that the foot steering is just kind of loose in there. Why did I do that? Well, a couple reasons. First of all, there's like a changing theory on whether or not tubing is good, bad. You know, it keeps the steering tight. I've always used it. A lot of companies have been moving away from it. And there's a reason, is because the tubing actually makes it a little bit harder to snake it through there, whereas with it being loose, the steering is a little tighter when you have to navigate the whole design. Whether or not I believe that or not, I wanted to test. Honestly, I'm blown away by how smooth the steering is. I popped it up to 60 and it moved really great. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm really impressed by how far down the nose stays under load. So like you can see here, typically it'll pop up like that when you're under load, but with this 120 you really do keep the nose down really well, and I think it's just because of the design of the kayak. Now we do have the battery in the front. You saw the challenges dealing with that. That's helping a lot too, but overall I'm really impressed because nobody's ever done this with this kayak. I don't know why no one's ever made a build like this. Now there is a lot less cockpit space as far as like around the seat, so like you can't get like the rods and stuff down in there, but comfort wise this thing is super comfortable. So stability wise, this thing is definitely more stable than the Shoalie. Definitely, I say that with kind of a laugh because the Shoalie to some people isn't super stable. I didn't have any issues with it, as you can tell on my videos, but this, honestly, I feel like I could probably walk out here. I'm not going to do it because it's cold, but maybe this summer we'll do some tests. But as far as like overall stability in this thing, man. And what I was blown away at when we launched over there, I paddled. I was like, you know what, I'm going to just paddle it for the first 10 minutes just to see. This thing paddles fast once you get going. All right, so we're going to watch this under load. You can see we're going to crank it up slowly, so that's 17%. Cruising pretty good here. I'm going to take it all the way up. So I go all the way max load here. It is a little bit wet, I will say that. Splashing a little bit. That nose is wanting to come up. So that's pretty good, dude. It is kind of wet though. We're going to put some two-way scuppers in. That'll help with that a lot. So not bad. I mean, overall, the test run has been really good. It's really responsive, turns really well, stable. But like I said, this part right here, we're gonna put some of those two-way scuppers in. That'll help with that a lot. You notice how wet it is. This is a super stable kayak rig as well. All right, so first run with this was pretty successful. Few takeaways here is that this right here is actually kind of nice. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but this actually is a stand strap. I think you can actually put, like, if you really wanted to, I think you could probably put like the steady stick. I don't know if he makes one for the paddle version, but he makes one for the pedal version. But I imagine that you could put one right there if he did. Super stable. I will say it is got a pointed nose, which is a good thing. I'm standing up here kind of just testing the plastic. We're gonna see if we can walk to the end. If this was a Shoalie, we'd be able to. Oh yeah, no problem. No problem at all. Gotta say, I am thoroughly impressed with this kayak, minus the amount of water, but like I said, we can fix that with some two-way scuppers. I happen to have these on hand for my 106. I just had an extra set of them laying around, and you just pop them in like that, and that gives you the stability and bonus of having scuppers in without a bunch of water coming up through it. So you can see the standing water there. So that was an issue what I think we have solved. So let me give you guys an idea of how I've got this back rigged here before we load up. You can see we installed this hatch. We saw that when we talked about it, but this is actually an extension cable. I originally built this for the Shoalie to give the 300 more up-down room. It's essentially a extender so that I can still reach this power when I'm sitting here. That was a really important thing to me without having a bunch of wires here, right? So I could actually probably pull the bulk of this wire up into this area if I needed to and then sit stuff on top of it. But it makes it so that when this runs to the front up here, you know, you can plug into your battery. And I know that looks really tight, and it is, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but that's kind of the setup of it, and it's pretty foolproof. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. It worked on the other ones. So, and you can see the steering here. I was talking about not having any tubes. It's working out great. So we'll see how the long-term longevity of it works. I'll show you guys how easy this is. So this is something I learned from the Shoalie. Pull it up, drop it down. I'm gonna have to tweak this a little bit because you might notice the motor is still hanging in the water slightly. Basically what I need to do is shorten the pulley in the front. I might not actually even need the pulley. This is so smooth, so I'm going to test it without the pulley and see how it does without the pulley. And then I'll give you another inch of clearance when you pull it up so it's not sitting in the water. But overall, thoroughly impressed with this kayak. All right, so we all know that the Shoalie was easy to drag. Instead of backing down and loading it, so my truck's back here, we are going to drag this kayak because it's going to get drug eventually. Might as well start now. I want to drag it and just see how easy it drags. And I've actually got the Shoalie strap on there, so let's do it to it. Honestly, considering this is substantially heavier, I say substantially, it's not that much heavier, it dragged pretty easy. I used to drag my 106 everywhere I went to, so pretty happy with that. Well, let's get loaded up and I'll get back to the house and talk about it a little bit. So here we are days later, and we've actually spent some time in this kayak, but here's the problem. We're snowed in. Yes, that's the downside of this time of year when it comes to kayaks. We are snowed in, we've got everything pulled in the garage, but let's talk about this kayak. Why did I decide to pick up this kayak of all kayaks, the Old Town 120? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First being is I've always liked the Old Town Sportsman and 106. It's a super stable platform. The big downside obviously is that it is more stable, thus it doesn't handle as well. But it got my wheels turning a little bit. So way back when I first started on this, I had this 106 with the NK180. And I was one of the first people to actually put a Newport or a stern mounted motor on that kayak, because the top waters and the Sportsman line, they have a bracket, but it's off put. So I actually devised a way, and this is before, you know, in all my genius, I was like, well, why don't I just make a straight bracket? Wasn't thinking like that. So I actually drilled a hole in this drum to keep it straight. And that's how I used that motor. Well, the wheels were turning in my head, and I was like, well, why can't we get the paddle version 120, you know, a little bit longer, a little bit stabler, it tracks a lot better than a 106, you got more space. What if we put a stern mounted motor on the back? What's stopping us from doing that? Now, I haven't seen a lot of people do this, so I knew that it would be a huge undertaking, and this is just the first video of many that are coming on this kayak, but It was not that hard. Because of the way it's set up, the foot steering was super easy to install. Mounting it on the back, I literally just measured it and put it straight into the kayak, used some giant rubber washers. Has it nice and tight on that kayak. There's not a lot of flex. You can literally pick it up under load by the mount if you wanted to. That plastic is a lot stronger than you think. So if you're not afraid to drill into the kayak, you're not gonna have any issues there. We put some silicone in there, put in the hatch, and the rest is history. But this is a cheap kayak. You can get this kayak right now in the Black Friday sales for like $899, brand new, from Eco Fishing Shop or any of your local dealers. I work with Eco, so if you want to order it online, I think they'll ship. I don't know the specifics of that kayak because it is a cheaper one, but that's $1,000 kayak. And nobody's talking about it. I feel like it's super criminally underrated because it has a high-low seat. You can see, like, you can actually put it in the high position like me, or there's a bracket that it comes with that you can drop it down to the low. I plan on keeping mine in the high. Actually, I'm planning on like lifting it up more. But there's a lot of features in this kayak that often get overlooked. And I just wanted to challenge myself to do a build like this. And truthfully, the main reason was stability. I wanted a kayak that was a little bit more stable so that when I stand and fish, I feel a little bit more confident. At no point did I ever feel like I was gonna flip in the shoalie from standing. I just wanna be able to move around a little bit more and control the Newport from my feet. So when you're standing in a kayak like this, you can actually keep the motor on like 1% and kind of use the foot pegs to push your feet, like your knees like this, and keep it in line. So we're gonna experiment with that. This is a challenge, this is a project. That's mostly what this is. This is a challenge project for me. I wanted to put a stern mounted motor on the 120 and see what it could do. Unfortunately, we are snowed in right now, so there'll be a little bit of delay on getting it on the river, but I think it'll have no problem, and I'm super excited about it. So yeah, mostly the reason I did it was because no one else was, and I like to be different. Can't wait to get this out there. If you got any questions about this build, leave them in the comments, and if you're not subscribed to follow this journey with this build, make sure you do.